mucho las cosas.
You know that the media sometimes decorates things.
Entonces, a mí me quieren poner que soy rebelde, que soy
And so they want to say that I'm rebellious,
la rebelde de mi familia.
and that I'm the rebellious one in my family.
Yo no creo tener ese mérito.
I don't have that merit.
Yo pienso que mi mamá, mi papá y la generación de cubanos a la que ellos pertenecen sí fueron rebeldes.
I think that my mom, my dad, and the generation of Cubans to which they belong are the ones that were truly rebellious.
Ellos sí se jugaron la vida.
They played their lives.
Toda esa generación de cubanos.
That whole generation of Cubans.
Toda la generación del cambio.
The whole generation of change.
Y en estos momentos estamos dialogando las distintas generaciones para que todos los criterios estén presentes en los nuevos procesos de cambio.
And right now we're engaged in a process where all the different generations are talking to each other to ensure that the needs of all the generations are met in these processes.
Voy a seguir luchando porque siempre sea así.
And I will always fight so that it will be so.
Ese mecanismo no debe cambiar.
That mechanism should not change,
Sino para mejorar.
just to improve.
This from Val from West Oakland. Val says, as a FTM Cuban planning on a return trip back home, what can I expect legally and where do I find organizations to connect with there? Yeah.
Sorry, FTM?
Piemonte Mail.
Demasiado una metáfora. Entonces, a ver, ¿qué puede esperar? Bueno, depende si va a vivir en Cuba y como ciudadano cubano.
It depends if she's going to live in Cuba as a Cuban citizen.
Y como ciudadano cubano y va a residir en Cuba.
And if she's going to live in, he rather is going to live in Cuba as a Cuban citizen.
Se va a beneficiar con las nuevas.
He will be benefiting from all the new laws
Normativas del Ministerio de Salud.
and all the new regulations of the Ministry of Health
Facilitan la operación gratuita.
that can enable free medical treatment.
Las distintas operaciones que necesita y los tratamientos que necesita de manera gratuita.
That the treatments and surgeries that might be needed will be free and paid for by the Cuban government.
Todavía no hemos logrado una ley de identidad de género que ya logró Argentina.
We haven't been able, as Argentina has done, to have a gender identity law.
En la que la persona no necesita operarse para que se les reconozca su cambio de identidad de género.
Where people's sex change in gender can be recognized regardless of whether or not they've undergone surgery.
Es algo por lo que también estamos luchando.
We're still fighting for that, so that people can have a change in their ID without necessarily having to go through surgery.
Pero por lo menos ya una sociedad que no las mira tanto como rara y que empieza a ser más solidaria con ellas.
At least we have a society that starts to look at transgender folks not as strange or weird, but as part of the Cuban society.
Y sí tendrá la posibilidad de entrar en la Federación de Mujeres Cubanas como una de las organizaciones de la sociedad civil.
De mujer a hombre.
Ah, de mujer a hombre. Ah, los hombres no tienen una organización específica.
She thought it was someone who was male to female, and so she said she could belong to the Cuban Federation, and she said, oh, if it's a man, he's got no special organization.
Todavía lo tienen todo.
They still have, they just don't have everything.
Gay activists are permitted within your organization, but is there room for an independent, non-government gay liberation group in Cuba?
Bueno, mira, no lo sé todavía.
I don't know yet.
No, yo, mientras tanto, hago mi parte
I can do my part
desde el CNSX,
from the CNSX,
formando activistas por los derechos sexuales,
training activists for sexual rights,
desde la metodología participativa de la educación popular,
from the participatory methodology of
la metodología participativa de educación popular.
of popular education. Freire, me vas a venir a jalar los pies hoy.
Y entonces, Espontáneamente se han ido organizando grupos
And so spontaneously, groups have been forming
que han pedido trabajar vinculados con el CNC.
that have asked to work in collaboration with the center.
Y entonces estos grupos los hemos identificado como las redes sociales comunitarias
And we've identified these groups as the
del
social
CNC,
networks
del CNC, que además
of the center
en diferentes ciudades del país.
in various cities in the country.
O sea que participan muy activamente junto con el CNC
And they participate quite actively with the
en
center
debates,
in
propuestas.
debates, in proposals.
Y bueno, yo me imagino que en la medida en que esta población que es heterogénea, porque también participan personas heterosexuales,
And then I believe that, you know, to the extent that these organizations, which are quite diverse and even include heterosexuals,
vayan ganando en conocimiento, en
gain
cultura,
knowledge, culture,
de cómo trabajar los derechos,
to how to work on rights.
en algún momento harán una propuesta
At some point, they'll have a proposal
convincente a la sociedad cubana.
to the Cuban people that is convincing to them.
O a lo mejor no necesiten hacerlo porque han encontrado espacios donde hacerlo.
Or maybe they won't need to because they'll find other spaces in which to do their work.
No puedo saber lo que va a pasar,
I can't see the future.
pero creo que toda la población cubana debe tener una cultura de lucha integral contra las discriminaciones, no solo sobre una forma de discriminación, porque todas están relacionadas.
But I believe that the Cuban people must have a strategy to end all forms of discrimination because they're all interrelated. Not just one form of discrimination, but all forms of
No se
discrimination.
trata de quitar el poder a uno y dárselo a otro.
It's not about taking power from one group to give it to another.
Es que todas y todos tengamos las mismas posibilidades.
It's that all of us have the same possibilities. That's the struggle.
Of all the countries you've traveled to so far, other than America, what country has impressed you with how they treat their LGBT people?
Ninguno.
None.
None. Fair enough. And America, of the observations you've made of America and how the American government treats LGBT people, how we treat our people here in San Francisco, what are your observations?
En todas partes hay cosas que me han gustado y cosas que no me han gustado.
Everywhere I found things that I like and things that I haven't liked.
Todavía ninguno me ha impresionado.
I haven't been impressed by any.
Pero, por ejemplo, sí me ha impresionado lo que se ha logrado a nivel de leyes entre México DF y Argentina.
I'm very impressed with what has been done in terms of laws in Mexico City and Argentina.
Lo considero un ejemplo a seguir.
I think it's an example to follow.
Me gusta que la comunidad LGBT tenga voces,
I like that the LGBT community has voices
que hagan la variedad de cosas que se hacen como ustedes aquí.
that do a variety of things like you here.
Pero no me parece que haya una manera de hacer las cosas.
But I don't believe there's just one way to do things.
Y me parece que lo más importante que quiero cuidar, por lo menos desde la experiencia cubana,
The one thing that I want to sort of take care of from the Cuban experience
es no segregar a ninguna población.
is not to segregate any population.
Que todas las poblaciones se sensibilicen
That all the populations be sensitized
y luchen contra todas las formas de
and
discriminación.
that all populations fight against all forms of discrimination.
Y contra todas las formas de injusticia social.
And all forms of social injustice.
Porque he visto grupos que luchando por los derechos lo que buscan es poder, replicando las mismas desigualdades por las que luchan.
And because I've seen many groups who in fighting for their rights only seek power and to reproduce the same kind of oppressions that they're fighting against.
Y dentro de los mismos grupos LGBT, grupos que quieren tener la supremacía, el poder y el control de los recursos que consiguen.
Even within LGBT groups that want to have the primacy, that want to have the power, that want to have all the money and the resources.
Y eso es muy peligroso porque se sigue reproduciendo los mismos mecanismos ancestrales de dividirse las personas en castas.
Because it's very, very dangerous because it reproduces ancestral methods of dividing people up into castes
Y establecer desigualdades.
and establishes inequalities.
Eso es lo que yo, por lo que yo lucho también.
That's what I fight for. That doesn't get reproduced.